Hit him with a little flight of the bumblebee.
I told you that it's scoring 14-10. We're coming up on halftime. Just a few moments, baby. We're going to rock the funk at Herndon.
Flight of the bumblebee! Flight of the bumblebee! Flight of the bumblebee!
Welcome to YardBuzz, fellas. My name is Lawrence.
And I'm Kim Wardwell, one of the educators down at the Education Building.
Today's a special YardBuzz. Today we have a Vice Chair of the Department of Correction, Mr. Dodds Hayden, along with John McElhaney. You guys recognize him from the Yard. And it's a very special edition today, man. And John, from what I understand, you two have an outside connection, huh?
Yes, we've known each other for quite some time. Holy smokes, it's been a couple decades.
I bet 22, 23 years ago.
Yeah.
When we met, yeah.
That was a long time ago. Actually, he's come a long way since the first time I met him. I was actually scared a little bit having this hair on my face because I remember one day going to work for him and he made me shave with a single blade razor in the bathroom, and I had like less stubble than I have on my cheeks right now. He's like, no, you're not coming out like that. You need to shave. So I was kind of...
Funny, memory is a funny thing, isn't it?
It is.
You kind of tell yourself all kinds of stories. If there wasn't stubble, I wouldn't have made you shave. But you do remember the nasty razor. We definitely made people...
Yeah.
That was... I spent 5 years in the Marine Corps. Definitely, a few things are hard to shake.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a little worried about the facial hair, but it went okay. It was all right.
PTSD.
Exactly. A little traumatized from it.
All right.
I wouldn't make you do it now. I'm not sure you can do 10 push-ups anymore, can you?
I might be able to get 7, right? Definitely not lifting a keg, that's for sure.
I heard something about keg races. Contests carrying kegs. Dodds could carry 2 of them.
It wasn't a contest.
Oh, they couldn't keep up with you.
So yeah, Dodds had a way of like challenging you without challenging you, like just talking about it and like making you be like, oh, all right, let's see then. And then to let you know that after you were done and couldn't, then it was like, well, it's okay. I'm not too big of a man to accept an apology. Oh, all right. But the good news is no matter where we went, because we spent.
Well, to put in perspective, I run Hayden Beverage. I've got a family business, Hayden Beverage Company. We distribute beer, wine, and Red Bull kind of throughout the state. And I was 20 years ago. I was running our Sun Valley office and warehouse, and so John, was with us for a couple days, and they're working. So we worked on a truck together, and as is the case then, is the case now, there's not nearly enough people to get the jobs done as we got jobs. So I was on a truck training John, and so yeah, we were throwing some kegs and cases and sweating together.
Yes, and so it's one thing to like work with an employee, because he was like, yeah, the boss isn't here, it's cool, we can get this done. It's another thing to work with not just the boss, but the owner of the company who runs 100 miles an hour every time, because then you got to keep up. And it's not just like, it's not like, hey, you need to keep up. It's, hey, I'm doing this, where are you? So it's pushing 100 miles an hour the whole time. It's nuts.
So at this point then, you're now on a panel, or a commission, a 3-person panel of citizens from the state that are in charge of overseeing the Department of Corrections. So what is your role? Is it, I'm guessing, even though you're a hands-on person, you're not micromanaging down in the prisons, but you're kind of the visionary, aren't you?
Interesting question. I think that so the Board of Corrections is meant to be a non-political board to oversee the department. And I think probably really the biggest job the board has is to hire or fire the director, right? I think so. The director, again, you don't want the director to be a political appointee, too tied to one governor or another. So that's really what the board's main job is to do. And then also, really any major policy stuff is run through the Board of Corrections. Now I think the role of the Board of Corrections changes based on who you have in the director's office, right? If things aren't running well and you don't have a good director, then you spend a lot of your time, just trying to, keep bad things from happening, correct bad things that are happening, and manage this director. I've only been on the board for a couple of years. Director Tewalt is the only director I've worked with. But for those of you who've been around, Director Tewalt is absolutely solid. And so we as a board don't have to worry about hiring and firing the director. Really, what I see as our job on the board is to help facilitate the stuff he's trying to do to move the ball forward, right? And because what he's trying to do is really all good constructive stuff. And so our job is how can we keep that moving, and how can we help support those initiatives.
So what does that look like? Specifically to his vision of normalcy and changing the atmosphere of corrections as it stands today.
I think you have. Again, I haven't been around that long. Interestingly enough, my dad had been on the Board of Corrections, but I was off of college in the Marine Corps, so I didn't share his experience. But as I understand it, the way things used to operate is very different the way things operate now. I think there's, as I understand it, I think there's 4 really roles of corrections. One is to take people off the street who are a danger who might be perceived as a danger to society. Another is to punish. Another is to discourage, right? You discourage people from doing crimes so they don't end up in a facility. And then the last one is to rehabilitate. And I think that Josh and Bree and we as a board think that 90% of what the corrections system does is that last one, is to rehabilitate. I believe roughly 98% of everybody in here is going to be out there sometime, right? 98% of all the residents are going to be neighbors and fellow citizens. So what we should be doing as a system is getting people ready for that, right? And I think the other thing is that people are always changing. There's a Stoic philosopher named Heraclitus, and he said something to the effect of that no man ever sees the same river twice, because the river is different and the man is different, right? And so we're always moving, right? Either we're moving backwards or we're moving forwards, but we're never the same, next month, next year, next decade, right? So I think what the administration, in the different facilities, what the administration, from the board level and the department level, everybody's just trying to help create ways that if people are changing, how can we help them change in the right direction? Make positive change as opposed to negative change.
So what do you see? You talked about punishment reform. What do you see as the biggest obstacle of changing that from punishment of what it used to be to reform what you guys are looking for today?
Yeah, I am no expert on prisons and prison reform. I guess I would see the biggest thing is to make sure there's pathways, make sure there's resources, to have to be able to have 2 choices and have a choice there that you can do that, whether that's through education, whether it's through ISCI and professional development stuff, whether it's mentorship programs and just different options and opportunities, right, that somebody can have. So I think that's one. And then I got to think the other is, is values and peer pressure and, the things that happen kind of, amongst the population day to day. And is there friction? What are the obstacles that prevent that from happening? Is it peer pressure? Is it gang activity? What are the things that prevent somebody from taking those, pursuing those opportunities? I imagine another one is belief in self, right? I think that I sat on an interesting panel last week, and it was an old senior vice president of Boise Cascade, a CEO of Micron, the president of HP, and somebody else. It was this really cool panel. And this senior vice president of Boise Cascade, she had been hired as an administrative assistant in 1960, right? So when women weren't in the boardroom, right? Women were bringing coffee, and somebody, one of the audience asked her what message do you have for women today? And her comment was, women think they need to check every box of a job requirement. Guys don't. Guys think, gosh, I got one or two of them done. I can ham and egg the rest of it, right? So there's this confidence level, and she was on a plane with the CEO of the company, and he said to her, you could be a senior vice president of this company, right? She had no idea that she could do that. So it took somebody telling her, you can do this, right? For her to, break through that kind of that lid that she had put on herself. Right, so I think that I have to imagine that is part of it in a prison system is to know that there's no lid, or to be able to see the potential that maybe you don't see now.
So to speak to that in relation to the prison system, I agree with you. First, I'll say that.
Yeah, you guys know a hell of a lot more than I do, so I'd love to hear what you guys think. Yeah.
So I would think that the way that that's applicable for this environment is that there are guys that currently don't fit the mold solely based upon their sentence structure. And what I mean by that is that the opportunities that are currently available are geared toward what you mentioned, a pathway. So for a guy who has a lengthy sentence, he technically has no pathway. So he's not really able to take advantage of the many opportunities that are available to him, at least not the ones that we quote unquote think matter, that the board wants to see, and that, put us in a position to ultimately be released. So
that's interesting you say that, because I think that and especially when I look at education and I look at kind of this paradox of time, right? For a lot of people, for a lot of adults, being able to get further their education, whether it's get a GED or get some college or get some professional training, the biggest thing that prevents people from doing that is time, right? Yet here we have the residents and the population of the system who, my assumption would be that you do have time, right? I imagine it's probably, a cliched, making a good time, or, good time versus bad time, or making your time work for you, or any of those things. But I think that is, the fact that this time is being taken away from all you guys, and at the same time, another set of time has been given to you. And how can you make that time that's been given to you productive? And if there are, it very much concerns me, even just walking around today, hearing this idea of things that classes you can only take when you're 6 months from release, right? That to me is concerning, including, I believe, programming for addiction. Programming for addiction, I believe, happens 6 months before you go out. People have got addictions they've had for 5, 10, 15 years. And why would you not be working on that day one?
Reentry begins in RDU, not 6 months from your parole eligibility date.
Right.
So how do we fix that?
Exactly. Right. If the goal, or if the purpose of these institutions is rehabilitation, why would you not be starting full speed from day one? And I think so. I do think there's and I know that's recognized within at the department. By the leadership of the department. I think, obviously a lot of things don't happen super fast, although, I think we can always challenge that assumption, right? Why not? We should always be asking why not. And I have at Hayden Beverage, we have this concept of a titwad. And a titwad sounds like a dirty word because this is a dirty word, right? It stands for this is the way it's always been done, right? And so, when we see titwads, we break them, right? Anytime you hear that, why do we do it that way? Well, that's the way it's always been done. That's a red flag. It's probably wrong, or it probably needs to be updated, right? So, I think we can. I hope that's our approach to the programming we do and to what our opportunities are and how the way we operate, that we're always looking to find, to break the things that are static or calcified and open up new stuff. So I think that in my conversations with them, with the department and the headquarters and the executives there, they feel the same way. I think the obstacle that I see now is I think is staffing and resources. That's one thing. And then the other thing I see is the time, right? Especially people who have shorter time. Right? So it's really interesting, right? You have people who have short time, you have people who have long time, right? You look at Southwest, women's, right? You got a lot of people on riders. There's not enough time to run them through a 3-month class, right? They may not be there long enough. So that creates one challenge. And then I think that the resources versus the people who have longer terms, making sure we can have the resources to make those pathways available to you guys. So I think those are some of the challenges that the department's dealing with.
Yeah, can I jump in on this one?
Yeah.
I think you're being modest when you say that that you support Josh's vision, and I think you are visionary also. You are the only Board of Corrections member that I've ever seen here on the Yard, and in my 10 years, you've been in the education building here at least 4 times. I know you visit personally a lot of the other prisons. One of your visions, and I think Josh has become a supporter of it, if I've got it, that direction, is college. You personally have paid the tuition for 3 classes with Boise State that we've had here at ISCI, 1-credit classes, to where you personally put in $15,000, $5,000 for each of those classes, and I know that you have set aside another $20,000 to $25,000 for additional classes between ISCI and some of the others here until we can get the Pell Grants. We are just working with 1 or 2 classes at a time, but you have a vision that goes clear into having 4-year college degrees. Would you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that it goes back to that, that no man sees the same river twice, right? That we're always changing. I also look at it. I believe it's a truism that we all want to improve. We all want to get better. B, we all want that for our families, right? That we want the next generation to be a little bit better than the way we have it, and so both at Hayden Beverage, and I think that education is a big part of that, right? Whether it's a bachelor's or an associate's or a GED or a high school diploma or a master's or doctorate or professional education, a certificate. Anything that kind of moves the needle forward. So I think that, so I'm just a big believer in education. I think it helps us, if it helps us think better, it helps us solve problems better, it helps us, in so many ways. And I believe in a more liberal arts education. I believe in studying history and literature because I think we get so much from those things that help us, across our lives in so many ways. So I'm a big proponent at my company. I actually, for every $1 somebody puts in an account for their kids or their own college, I match that for $1. Dollar for dollar to up to $5,000 a year. So I just want to help get that done. To me, I think there is a dearth of education opportunities here. There are a lot of opportunities. I think there can be a lot more because of that time thing, right? Because we've got people who have time. let's take that and let's give them these educational opportunities to push themselves and meet and help them meet their potential. So I'm just a big believer. I'm not going to wait around the bureaucracy. You take the bureaucracy of the Idaho State government and the correction system, and then the bureaucracy of a state university. Holy smokes, right? It's amazing anything ever gets done. So, I think my putting money to it is I don't want anything to slow this thing down. And so if I need to invest in some dollars in the residents and the students to help push this thing forward until we can get a more sustainable model, then so be it. But yeah, I don't want, again, I think it's in a system with as much bureaucracy, it's so easy for things to stall and die. But
I know a lot of our residents, our students have been extremely appreciative. I have lots of other people that want to come in and get involved in the college, and it hurts to not be able to take them in right now and to have to say, well, right now we're waiting for the Pell Grants, particularly since that's up in at Lewis Clark State and U of I, as far as getting it down here. So again, the inmates, we talk about these things and then it's hurry up and wait.
Yeah. And I don't see it as an either or, right? I don't see it as, we only do the Pell Grant stuff, or the Pell Grant stuff is going to allow us to do the BSU program. It's got to be a both and situation. So I think having Boise State so close to the CUNA campus, it's crazy for us not to be tapping into that.
Well, and the technical programs at CWI, College of Western Idaho, it's right in our backyard also.
Exactly. So I think that we got a bunch of resources. We need to tap into those, and a lot of that is just creating the connection. So, and that's what we did, right? We found an old BSU professor and I were having coffee and talked about doing this, and so we got Todd to come in and teach the first class, and it really was. It was like, we're not going to let all these things get in our way. We're just going to push through and do it, and that creates momentum, and then momentum builds on itself. So.
Well, not only did you send us Todd Shallett, Dr. Shallett from BSU, but you also sent us, help me out, the author. Yeah,
Tony Dorr.
Tony Dorr, yeah. Pulitzer Prize winning novelist, is a friend of yours that you sent our way.
Yeah, and so in his latest book, so he won the Pulitzer Prize for All the Light We Cannot See, and then he just wrote his follow-up to that, which is called Cloud Cuckoo Land. Just an amazing book, and I'll see if I can't get you guys a bunch of them. But anyway, you guys are mentioned there, so there is I don't want to be a spoiler, but there is, I can't remember what institution it was. I don't know if it was ISCI or anyway. But he does mention the one of the characters ends up in prison at the end of it. So yeah, I'd love to get Tony back out here. He will will bend your mind around in different ways, which is such a nice thing to do.
So you're the vice chair of IDOC. You've a business owner, proprietor, well-known, obviously. For you to invest in inmates the way you did, especially in a place where it's not very acceptable maybe to be inmate friendly, what made you want to make that investment? And did you have to deal with any like pressure of, why are you doing this? Why would you do that? What makes you want to do that? Or be afraid of, hey, I'm a vice chair of a prison, a system, IDOC, and be looked at as overly inmate friendly?
No, there's no pressure. I think so. What, again, I think as far as being on the board in the first place, the governor asked me to be on the board, and I think I saw it as an opportunity to be of service to the state. I was born and raised here. I love Idaho. It's been, I've run a business here that's been successful. So if an opportunity to give back to the state in some way and be of service is to me, a gift. So and then not knowing a damn thing about corrections, right? I think no reason to have me on the board other than I think I do come from a business standpoint. And of the 3 members of the board, the 3 of us have different backgrounds, and I certainly am the kind of the business experience guy on the board. Before I got on the board, if you told me, what's corrections, I would say, it's big gray buildings with kind of goons on the inside and inside of the bars, and goons on the outside of the bars. And that is kind of the image that I think a lot of society has of prison, and that's what you get from movies and TV shows. And then, from day one, when I started, working with corrections and visiting facilities and talking to residents and talking to COs and talking to administrators, it was just, holy smokes, right? It was just unbelievable how wrong my perceptions were. That what I see in the administrators and the wardens and the COs is people who recognize that they're doing something that's really important for our society, as far as getting people ready to come back into the community. What I see from the residents and the inmates is a bunch of people who made some bad choices or came up in some bad situations, but they're all people, and mostly people who want to better themselves and get back on track and care about each other, right? And so it's just amazing how, and so part of me wants everybody to understand that, and see that difference. So that, I think, is how I got in there. That's one of the things that I think motivated me why to invest in the education, is being able to to have the scales drop from my eyes on what corrections is, and truly the people within corrections, right? Corrections is this kind of abstract thing, but then once you see the people who are in the system, and which is obviously such a disparate group.
So how do we open up that vision wider? How do we get more people to see it?
That's a great question. That's a great question. To be honest, I would love to have authors like Tony Doerr write about it. I think that one of the problems you have is when you see documentaries or movies about prison, they do it to sell ads, right? So they want to make it, they want to make it prurient and violent or scary, or so their motivation to make money is absolutely runs counter to, I think, what we want to do with corrections and the vision that people have of corrections. I think the other thing is we need to continue to push legislators to get out into the facilities and meet people, both COs and residents. I think that helps. But I don't know. That's a lot of it's a heavy lift, right?
Well, let's commit to the lift.
How
about that?
I'm committed to it. I'll tell you that. I think and I do. I get to tell that story, and people, when people find out that I'm at the Board of Corrections, they're like, God, hey, how did you end up doing that? And what are you doing that? And I get to tell that story, right? That the way I look at, again, so much has changed since it's just even being introduced to it. I mean, my position on capital punishment, right? Before being involved with corrections, I was like, yeah, capital punishment makes sense, right? And then now, the more I know about the system, about the effect of capital punishment, both on the inmates and on the COs. I consider myself a conservative, kind of a small government conservative. So, does it make sense that that's a role that the state's playing? But again, I don't that my perception, my opinion would not have changed had I not been introduced to you guys. And so it is, right? I think it's a lot of exposure. How do you expose people to things, and essentially expose people to people, mm-hmm. right? I think that's where things change. You see that in your classes, right? It's instead of people and ideas or people and demagoguery, when it's people and people, that's when you have the best chance of good things happening. Yeah.
So Dodds is in part of getting ready to close this. What would you say in terms of your vision? Would you hope that 5 years from now we would see at IDOC or specifically to ISCI? What kind of changes would you hope that we would be doing?
And how can residents help that?
I think what I would hope for, if I was going to paint a somewhat utopian vision, it would be that when you go to RDU, you start talking about your education, your development, and your programming, and it is an active part of your of every week. That whether that's doing ICI stuff, or it's doing programming, or it's doing or it's taking classes, or it's teaching classes, or it's mentoring people, but this idea that that is a big part of the institution. To my, I believe of the there's 300 people in education out of 1,500 people in the institution.
About that. It's very fluid. The numbers don't change.
Or maybe 300 is a high water mark, right?
Yeah, some come and visits, and some
to me,
come back, repeat business.
To me, I look at that as huge potential, right? It's and it's interesting. It's interesting to look at numbers. Right? So recidivism, for example, I think that again, if I was before I got into involved with the department. If you told me that we've got a 66% recidivism rate, I would think that's awful, right? We're failing, 66% of the time. But the flip side is, and I think this department, working with the department, has helped me see that. That means a third of the time we're successful, right? And so everybody who's here, they're bringing some crap with them, right? They're bringing some trauma, they're bringing addiction, they're bringing some, whether it's education or poverty or abuse, there's a lot of things that ended up getting them here, right? And so to be able to get out and get on the straight and narrow, that takes a lot, right? To overcome all that crap. And so if we're able to, if 1 out of every 3 people are able to overcome that and be successful and stay out, that's awesome. Right. And similarly, I guess I should probably look at if we got 200 to 300 people that are in the program, that's a good thing, right? We got 200 or 300 people who are working that good path. But I can't help but dream about having 500, 700, 800, 900 people in that in that path. So that would be, if I could go forward 5 years, I would love to see. A myriad college level programs going on, myriad professional trade programs going on. Just a bunch of stuff that is both engaging people's minds and giving them tools to be successful. And that'd be my vision.
Well, it's been a real privilege having you here with us, Dodds. One final question. His question was a great one. His question was interesting. You don't say that about mine. Is it because you're jealous that I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt?
My jealousy of you blinds me often. Yeah. But seriously, but I so appreciate you. I appreciate all you guys, right? I think one of for me, seeing John was, I guess, kind of bittersweet, right? I hadn't seen him for 20 years, and then I show up at a GED graduation, and there he is as one of the tutors for the GED. So obviously, seeing you in prison, I was disappointed to see that, but at the same time, to see you, making the most of it and having a positive influence. That was awesome, and then to see what you do every day to build programs for these guys, and again to create those positive pathways. That's doing God's work, and I so appreciate what you do.
Maybe what we could do is get Hawaiian shirts for the board.
Maybe that would tip the balance.
Could be.
Hey, I'm willing to try almost anything.
I do have one more question
before
you leave. As being a fan of Viktor Frankl, and his message of hope while being a prisoner in a concentration camp. What would your message be to the residents or their families before we leave?
I think that so for anybody who hasn't read, so Viktor Frankl was I think a philosophy professor, and was sent to the concentration camps during World War II, and he was in Auschwitz, and he developed a philosophy. What he saw was he would see people die in the concentration camps, and he'd see people live in the concentration camps, and the people who lived all had a sense of meaning. And what he did was he was able to he found meaning in this horrible situation he was in. And that's what got him through. And that's what he developed this philosophy in his book is called Man's Search for Meaning. And he developed this philosophy that we all have this need to have meaning, right? That our lives have meaning, that our activities have meaning, our days have meaning. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? How do you've got this time, how do you make the time to be positive, right? How do you make the time to be positive to be coaching people, to be, I was over at, I guess, ISCI, and they were putting together a mentorship program with a few people who had been in the institution for 5 years or more, to take these guys right as they're coming to the institution and to try to keep them from being veered off into gangs or into these bad spots, and help mentor them and so I think those to me are ways you can make your time have meaning here, and just the way Viktor Frankl tried to find meaning in his time in Auschwitz.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
All
absolutely.
Right. All right.
Find meaning.
But yeah, great book. I recommend it to anybody. Yeah.
Well, fellas, as always, I hope this episode of YardBuzz gave y'all something to think about, something important to rotate y'all minds on, and something positive to look forward to. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.